It's going to be 70 and sunny on Saturday, but there's a hurricane coming into town.
And it's not just any hurricane, a golden one based out of Tulsa. Say bye-bye to the bye week.
And I'm Jackson Batcher, live outside of Edberg Olson Hall. Later in the show, I'll take a look at Owls standout special teamer Maddox Trio and his journey from the FCS to the AAC to maybe even the NFL.
And I'm Kayla Vine, live at the studio set. Later in the show, I'll be taking a look at two teams in the AAC that had a record-breaking change over the weekend and discuss Week 7's conference matchup. Inside the Nest is live, and it starts right now.
Hello everyone and welcome into a brand new edition of Inside the Nest. I'm Hayden Bandel and she's Sam Cavone. After having its bye week at the midway mark of the season, Temple has taken that time to acknowledge and focus on the things they need to improve on for the second half.
Coming out of the bye week, Temple now has its eyes on its third conference opponent of the year in the Tulsa Golden Hurricane. The Golden Hurricane will be traveling to the Lincoln Financial Field after having its bye week last week, just like Temple. On the season, Tulsa has a record of 2-4, just one game better than the Owls at 1-5. Overall, there are 6 teams in the AAC still looking for that first conference win. 2 of those teams will be at the Link on Saturday. This is a Tulsa team that has just not found its footing yet. So far, the team is averaging about 24 points per game, with 182 yards on the ground and 209 yards in the air. The Golden Hurricane has defeated the Owls in the last 2 matchups. This year may look a little different, as Tulsa has a new starting quarterback in Kirk Francis. The true freshman has thrown for 1,064 yards and 6 touchdowns after starting in all 6 games of the season. Returning seniors Camden Benjamin and Anthony Watkins lead in receiving and rushing yards, respectively.
Now it's time for our player watch, and I want to highlight the Temple defensive lineman, Demarick Morris. Demarick did not play against UConn, so he's going to have essentially 3 weeks of rest without playing in a football game. He's only got half a sack on the season. For a single digit and the leader of the team, I want him to see him step it up more and perform on the field.
Tulsa side backup quarterback Cooper Lagaz is someone that the Owls should be on the lookout for. How often do you talk about a backup QB? Here's why. Lagaz transferred to Tulsa this season from Utah State, where he started in 15 games throughout his career. Last year, Lagaz threw for over 1,800 yards and had 19 touchdowns. In the Golden Hurricane matchup with Army, he recorded the only touchdown of the game, as he alternated the series with the starting QB. So he's made the most out of his opportunities.
Maybe another one of those players to watch is Temple place kicker Maddox Trulio, who has already etched himself into the Temple history books in just half a season.
Inside the Nest beat reporter Jackson Batchelor is live outside of Edberg Olson Hall with the story. Hey, Jackson.
Guys, you may know Maddox Trulio, or Automatics, as the Owls standout kicker with a leg for the NFL, but the senior has came a long way. Just a year ago, Trulio was playing his college ball in the United Athletic Conference in the FCS and did not pursue a football career until the first year of his high school. Flash forward to 2024, and he is putting up some historic numbers.
It's been a frustrating year for Temple football, unless your name is Maddox Trio.
And booms it through.
It's the senior's first and maybe only season as a member of the Cherry and White. The Georgia native played his first 3 seasons at Austin Peay State, but decided to take his talents to the FBS for his final season.
For me, really, my staff left, like my head coach and all the coaches at Austin Peay left and went to UTEP. So I figured it'd be a great time to go into the portal, especially going into my last year.
Trujillo's 64-yard field goal against Utah State was the 8th longest in NCAA history. Trujillo has arguably the best leg in the nation. These skills, however, may not have been possible without his parents, who are both soccer players.
Both my mom and my dad both played soccer, so I grew up I played baseball first, but then got into soccer because of them, and I liked playing soccer a lot, and I looked up to them a lot, and so I started doing that, and then eventually found my way onto the football field, and it seemed to help out a lot.
Trujillo is the definition of a student athlete. After making honor roll all 4 years of high school, as well as having multiple academic achievement awards at his 3 years at Austin Peay State, it's safe to say that Trujillo can balance out the classroom and the gridiron.
Really just doing as best as I can, and everything I do is the best you can do. I'm the type of person that gives 100% effort all the time, and that shows up in the classroom too.
Even though this is likely Trujillo's only season on North Broad, the Owls gave Trujillo a chance to make a name for himself in the FBS, and through the first 6 games, he's exceeded expectations.
On Thursday, Trujillo was selected to the Reese's Senior Bowl midseason All-American team. This team consists of the best players in college football that are eligible to participate in the 2025 Senior Bowl in February. Trujillo continues to receive accolades as he was named the AAC Special Teams Player of the Week in Week 4 following the 64-yard bomb that he hit against Utah State in the Owls' lone win this season. The future for Maddox Trio may be uncertain, but it is clear that Automatics and the Temple Owls have a great match for each other, as he has been able to bail out this inconsistent Temple offense on multiple occasions through the course of the season. Reporting outside of Edberg Olson Hall, I'm Jackson Batchelor. Hayden and Sam, back to you on desk.
Thanks, Jackson. Turning our attention from the Owls to the Golden Hurricane, Hayden and I got a chance to speak with Larry Lewis, a sports writer for Inside Tulsa Sports.
Larry has been covering Tulsa sports for over a decade. We start off by asking him about the receiving corps.
They have young receivers. They have a lot of freshman receivers are playing. They have one good receiver, Cam Benjamin, who is really good, a former walk-on, but a really good player, senior player. They're supposed to pass a lot, but they wind up running a lot on first down, and the offensive line didn't that great. They lost their starting right guard, their best offensive lineman, Ty Marks, was lost for the year, shoulder injury. So they try and have an even run-pass ratio, but it really hasn't been working a lot, unless in a few games have been decent, but they played decent against Louisiana Tech, and they won against Louisiana Tech. But it's kind of even run-pass ratio.
Both teams are defeated. They don't have any conference wins. How do you think that's going to shape up the way that both these teams play for the first conference win of their season?
Well, I think both teams are looking for confidence. I know Temple. I saw the ending in the last game. That was a tough one. I mean, I felt for you guys. So I think confidence is the biggest issue. I think if one of these teams can get a win and get some confidence, I mean, I think Tulsa's schedule sets up to where they played their toughest teams already. The rest of the last 6 games aren't that, none of the teams really stand out. I mean, so if Tulsa can get some confidence, I think Tulsa can at least if they can beat Temple, I think they can be a 6-win season. But I think if Tulsa actually loses to Temple, I think it could be a 3 or 4-win season. So I think I know it's a big game for Temple as well. If Temple gets a win, I mean, looks like Temple's been playing has played some good football, just hasn't got any wins. So I think it'll be telling for both teams who wins this game.
Now that we know about Tulsa, who just had the week off, Stan Drayton and his Owls, they're also feeling fresh off of the bye week, and so are we. With that said, it's time for routes.
It is time for Hayden and I to dig into our routes for success. Now, route number 1 is to get to the quarterback. Temple only has 7 sacks on the season so far, which is 114th in the nation. If the Owls defense can get to the quarterback, then there is the possibility to create more opportunities on both sides of the ball and get the Golden Hurricane offense off the field quicker.
Route number 2, use Tulsa's inexperience to your advantage. This is a Tulsa team, when you go down the depth chart, they're very not experienced at all. But when you look at Temple's side, they can really take advantage of that.
Route number 3, score off of those possible turnovers. This was something that the Owls lacked in the game against UConn. The Owls cannot settle for 3 points after forcing a turnover. They desperately need to get the 6 points. Turnovers already changed the momentum of the game, and the offense needs to do its part to keep that momentum going after the fact.
Final route, it almost worked the week before. Stop the run. Temple allowed less than 100 yards against UConn, one of the top rushing attacks in the nation. They're going to have to do it again against Tulsa, who's averaging over 180 rushing yards per game.
Hayden must be studying film because he was the only one out of the 4 of us to correctly pick UConn to defeat Temple 2 weeks ago. This bumps Hayden to a 5-1 record, while Kayla, Jackson, and myself all sit at a 4-2 record.
Not only did most of us here at Inside the Nest, outside of myself, get the Temple-UConn game wrong, so did you, the fans. That's 2 straight weeks with a loss for our fans on X. Hopefully you guys also use this bye week to regroup yourselves because our poll is back. You can check it out on X at Owl Sports Update. Let's try and get back on that win column with your pick in the Temple-Tulsa games. Tell us who you've got. And speaking of the win column, Sam, I'm doing it. I'm taking Temple to win and get back in that win column. 28-25, I think, is going to be the final. Maybe Trulio, it's a game-winning field goal at the end. But seriously, a Tulsa team, they only beat Northwestern State and Louisiana Tech in overtime. Temple is 7-3 in homecoming games the last 10 seasons. That is going to be a huge factor with that crowd.
Hayden, I have to agree with you. I have a close game. Temple winning 23-20. Temple needs to feed off of the homecoming energy. It's also a game that the Owls need to win. It'll be a huge confidence boost, something that Temple needs. And if the team's able to get on the same page, fix the communication issues, the Owls should walk out with the win. Now, Kayla and Jackson, what do you think?
Guys, I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm going Owls 27, Golden Hurricane 24. Tulsa, they give up a ton of yards on defense, averaging almost 400 yards per game, and 265 of those yards come in the air. So Dante Wright, who is leading the AAC currently in catches per game, this could be a matchup nightmare for him with this Golden Hurricane defense. And honestly, if the Owls play the way they did against UConn, with the exception of obviously the late game mishap and with the turnovers on offense, if they can force turnovers and play the way they did in East Hartford, I do think that they can win this game. I'm going 27-24. Kayla, what do you think?
I'm also going with a Temple win with a final score of 24-21. The Owls are coming off a bye week, which gave them the ability to rest and recover after a rough ending at UConn. If they can stay healthy and consistent on both offense and defense, I really do see the Owls securing their 2nd win of the season and on a special weekend.
Take it out to the link and enjoy the homecoming festivities. You can stream the game on ESPN Plus with kickoff set for 2 o'clock. You'll also be there, and we'll have live updates throughout the day on our social media platform at Owl Sports Update.
Are looking to get back in the win column. Drayton hosted his Monday press conference after taking off last week thanks to the bye.
When we return, we'll be taking a look at what Drayton said about the team, about how the team is feeling coming into this week's game, and he's got some news on the quarterback carousel. Inside the Nest will be back in 90 seconds.
It was well used. Obviously, our coaches had an opportunity to go on the road and recruit, things of that sort. But we got a good couple days of work in, and most importantly, got some players back.
Welcome back to Inside the Nest. Stan Drayton held his weekly Monday news conference. Drayton touched on how the team used the bye week to prepare for Tulsa, as well as the current mindset of the Owls that are struggling to play competitive football.
Yeah, a little bit. We went back to fundamentals, techniques, make sure that we, that's the one thing that we have to default to when under chaos is to make sure that our bodies are, remembering that we have trained to use a certain technique and fundamental to get our job done, and that needs to become a habit. So that was the focus. Obviously, we had to get our guys healthy, so it wasn't extremely physical. Although it was a lot of good work, which we need to get some of that speed work and get our quarterbacks and our receivers timed up with some good DBs. That took place a lot during the course of the week, and we introduced Tulsa to them toward the back end of the week, and now we're actually executing that game plan as we start this week's preparation. So it was well used. Obviously, our coaches had an opportunity to go on the road and recruit, things of that sort, but we got a good couple of days of work in, and most importantly, got some players back. So the day after the game, I walked in here, trying to check myself and my demeanor, and I heard my players before I actually saw them. They were in a good mindset. They had good energy around the building, and they were in the training room enjoying each other. And You know, that later that day I kind of pulled the leadership council in, our single digits in our leadership councils, and we talked about it, and everyone to a man felt as though, you know, we're better than our record states. We have a lot to play for. We have a legacy that we're leaving behind in terms of how we approach the game every week and how we respond to adverse situations during the course of the week and even in the game. And they've done a great job at that. And they've been able to reset and get to zero, get to the next game. And I think that's why we've been able to be competitive in these games, you know, regardless of the result. It's the fact that they're intentional about proving themselves right. And, you know, we understand as a football team that it may not come when you want it, right? Are you tough enough to keep fighting for it, though? And that's what it is. You know, yeah, you may not get it when you want it, right? But are you tough enough, you know, to keep going for it? And to a man, we are. We're tough enough as a football staff, as a football team to keep fighting for what we want, and that's what you're going to get from this Temple football team.
So, Sam, Stan Drayton said that they're better than what their record states. And honestly, like, that's something that I look at that when he says that, and it doesn't matter, right?
No.
Coming into the season, Stan Drayton specifically said this is a year, in year 3, where he wants to see results. They're not getting results.
No.
They're 1-5. They want to leave a legacy. They said they're leaving one. I don't know what type of legacy
yeah, I was
they're
going to
leaving.
say, I don't think it's the right legacy that they're leaving. Stan Drayton has to be motivational. He's the head coach. He can't go out on the press conference and say, hey, this team isn't doing that well, but they have the talent. They're just not executing it. It's not working out in some type of way that it should, and it does suck for this football team, but they need to be better. You can't go out here saying they're better than their record.
It is time for us to take a timeout.
But on the other side of the break, we'll be joined by John DeCarlo, who covers Temple football for OwlScoop.com. We'll talk about the rest of this season and the future of Stan Drayton at 10th and Diamond. Don't go anywhere. Inside the Nest, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. We talk about Temple football each week on Inside the Nest. Now we welcome in a guy who writes about Temple football every week. OwlScoop.com editor John DeCarlo.
John has been covering Temple football for over 2 decades. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Happy to do it.
So we're going to get started. We're hearing that Evan Simon is good to go for this game Saturday. It's still unclear if he's starting. What are your thoughts on this? What are you reporting about it?
It's probably coach speak. And I think fans get a little too bent out of shape about this. This is a 1-5 football team. Yes, Tulsa knows how to prepare for Evan Simon. They know how to prepare for Forrest Brock. They know how to prepare for Tyler Douglas. There's no reason for Stan to say, yeah, Evan's going to start. I think he's telling the truth. Like, he's been held out for 3 weeks, and he is ramping things up. Hayden, you asked that question yesterday, like, is he going to start? I'm not sure yet. He said he's good to go, but I'm not entirely sure. And I think fans get too bent out of shape about that. I think if push comes to shove, he'll probably start. But I think there is some genuine sentiment there where he had an SC, shoulder joint injury, and I think Stan wants to do well for this team, but there's no way Evan Simon should have been in the last drive against Army, and that's when he got hurt. So there are consequences for those decisions. But I think if he's well enough to practice, he'll play Saturday.
So with them being 1-5, is there a specific thing that you can pinpoint throughout the team and just say this is something that needs to get fixed and might be a big reason?
They don't know how to win. It's that simple. When Al Golden helped revive this program, they had to cut through so many bad habits. The way they lost 2 Saturdays ago was the way they used to lose in the Big East when like Frank Gore and Andre Johnson were at Miami, Michael Vick was at Virginia Tech. They would be with those teams by halftime. And like the exact play that you saw happen is what would happen, except it would happen at halftime. I don't think that they have elite level talent, but they are better than their record. In the last segment, you guys said, I think we're better than their record. They are. They should have beaten Coastal Carolina. They should have beaten UConn. And in a different set of circumstances, they could be gearing up toward being bowl eligible. They don't know how to handle sudden change. I think they could win. I think they should win on Saturday. There's nothing special about this Tulsa team where they shouldn't be able to beat them, but they have to eliminate, obviously what happened on Saturday. But I don't think he's lost the locker room, and I think that they need a win under their belt badly, obviously.
You talk about this and how Temple doesn't know how to win. Does that mean that Stan Drayton is on the hot seat? And do you think that a new president coming to the university will impact that in a way?
It all depends. I think it would be very, very tricky in a short turnaround for. I think that if they go out and lose Saturday, and you start seeing signs of him losing the locker room, then I think anything's possible. But would John Fry come in and make a change at athletic director and football coach in the span of like multiple weeks? The odds are actually stacked in Stan's favor to return. I think if he wins 3 games or 4 games, fans aren't going to love hearing this. I think he's back. And I think the athletic department needs to do more to support him with NIL. They lose players, and this has to be a whole package deal where the athletic department needs to get better in supporting them through NIL. Like, people thought that Temple was going to get Kyle McCord when he transferred to Syracuse. They didn't have the money to get him. So they have what they have. I think there's a good chance he comes back. If he loses the locker room, all bets are off. But you have to consider the future of the athletic director and the head football coach and how that gets done in a very quick amount of time. So I would have to see how that plays out.
Now that we're talking big picture, just how did we really get here? Right? This is a team that was competing in conference championships, hosted game day. How did we just get here overall?
A lack of a strategic plan and a lack of vision overall about athletics. I think you can point to a couple of different pieces. I think that they did not capitalize off of the Matt Rule era, off of the Jeff Collins era. The Manny Diaz fiasco really set this program back. And then when Manny Diaz left and pivoted and went to Miami 2 weeks later, there was a lot of pressure put on the previous athletic director to say, go find a coach that wants to stay here for the rest of his life. No coach stays for the rest of their life. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame. Nick Saban has left and gone back and forth. And they went and they tried to find a guy who was going to stay here for the rest of his life in Rod Carey, and it was a total unmitigated disaster.
Yep, it was a disaster.
And it's been downhill ever since.
John, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
No
Well,
problem.
we've got to take a break now, but on the other side, 2 teams are now ranked in the American. Find out who when we take a trip around the AAC. Welcome back to Inside the Nest. There were only 4 conference games last week, thanks to multiple teams being on a bye.
However, 2 of those teams are now nationally ranked inside the AP Top 25's latest poll. Inside the Nest beat reporter Kayla Vine is at the studio set to explain. Hey, Kayla.
Yes, guys, for the first time in 64 years, Army and Navy are both nationally ranked in the top 25 at the same time. Army is ranked 23rd and Navy is 25th. This comes after both teams find themselves undefeated through week 7 of the college season. They're on a collision course for the top 2 spots in the AAC, which will put them up against one another in a league title game in early December. Also, if we look on the scoreboard, Memphis defeated South Florida 21-3. And then we see North Texas scored 41 points over the FAU Owls, and we obviously know that big Army win, of course. And the weekend finished with the Rice Owls win over the UTSA Roadrunners 29-27. The rest of the AAC had a weekend off, and it's looking for a weekend of conference matchups, but that's all I have for the American. Guys, back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Kayla. Now Temple is halfway through the season, but they still got half a dozen games left to go. We're going to talk about the least winnable game and the most winnable game. Outside of Tulsa, who we all agree Temple is going to beat, I think FAU is a team that they can easily beat. And I don't think they're going to, but it's a team where you look at them and it's kind of hard to get a good feel on them because they got blown out by UConn but played a close one against Army.
Yeah, and they also played a close one against North Texas, having the lead. I do agree with you, but they let it up in the last couple of minutes, so I do think it will be an easy one for Temple to win. But now looking at the most winnable, the least winnable, I think it will be the North Texas game. Temple has a history of losing in their last games, even when they're at home. They haven't won their last game since 2019. That wasn't a bowl game.
I think that Tulane game is going to be a very tough one, too. They're 17-1 in the last 18 conference games.
But unfortunately, we are out of time for this edition of Inside the Nest.
Enjoy the game from wherever you may be watching it, and we'll be here next week to break it all down. Thank you for watching, and be safe.